Hi, my name is Bianca Beck. I am the Sovereign Marketing Manager for the Middle East. I am joined in studio today by two really interesting people in the HR space. My colleague, Faraz Ahmed, and then our guest speaker today, Kimi Scott-Smith. We're talking about HR, people operations, and I think both of you bring really interesting perspectives. Kimi, if I'm not mistaken, you're mainly from like an internal HR perspective. And then Faraz, you obviously work with me at Sovereign, but you do a lot of the HR outsourcing to a lot of our clients. Yeah. But I wanted to start by firstly giving you the opportunity to introduce yourselves a little bit, how you've kind of come to where you are today and your kind of, your growth in the HR space yourselves. Kimi?
Thank you so much for having me. So I'm actually an engineer by trade.
Wow.
Went to engineering school, software engineer, and did about 12 years of management consulting and project management back in Canada and the US. And when I moved to Dubai in 2015 is when I switched into HR. So my first role in the region was with Expo 2020. And then since then, I've had subsequent internal roles, some on the consulting side, and have really seen sort of the landscape of HR change in the UAE over a decade now, so for 11 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a bit about me.
Yeah, we'll get into the change in a minute. But for us?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like Kimi, I'm actually in the legal field by trade. So I did my degree in law in the UK. And I worked a couple of years as a paralegal and then shifted to HR. I feel like it's a trend with HR that no one really actually works. It starts off in HR and then goes on. But yeah, I mean, I entered the kind of HR space from a recruitment talent acquisitions perspective. I started off with Hayes and then slowly that went into more kind of broader HR support for clients. And now we're at a stage where I'm leading the HR space for clients across Sovereign in the GCC. Yeah. So it's a pretty interesting place to be.
Yeah. Having both worked in this region now for, 5+ years, what would you say are some of the biggest changes that you've seen? I mean, things are changing in this region almost on a daily basis. So maybe it's hard to summarize all the change that has happened in that time. But from, maybe you can start with like even, transitioning into the Expo role and kind of working on a big project that everyone knew about Expo 2020. It was this big, and the amount of, just the expectations, kind of taking me through where you started, where you are now, and what the kind of main changes have been in that time.
Yeah, I joined Expo as employee number 79. And by the time I left, I think we were 2,000 plus, plus contractors, plus volunteers, etc. So very, very big project that grew rapidly on a monthly basis, really. And what I've seen, and actually now that I would think about my time at Expo, by the time I left, I think we had 26 people in the HR team, but a majority of them working on the recruitment and operations side. Wow. So it was that engine that needs to keep HR going. And what I've seen over the last decade is I think HR has sincerely gone from being a very operational function to being a more strategic function in the region. Yeah. It used to be that multinationals were the ones with like the centers of excellence and focusing on talent development. But now more and more you see homegrown brands from the UAE and Saudi brands that see HR as a more strategic partner, and they have a seat at the table in the C-suite. So they're investing more on the talent development side of things, on career paths, on learning, because they know that an investment made in their people strategy is really an investment being made in their growth strategy. So that shift has happened, I think, in majority. Not all organizations, but even the really large sort of large brands in the region that have a presence in the GCC, as they expand into different markets, they realize that HR can't just be reactive all the time. Yeah. It's not just about, now we need to hire people. Now we need to restructure. It needs to be a function that's actually a lot more proactive as well. So there's been that shift from operational to strategic, and like reactive to being proactive.
Yeah.
So instead of just firefighting, it's like, how do we make systems and processes so that the fires don't even happen?
I agree completely, and I think one of the things that's always been the case with HR and the GCC is that we've always played a bit of back foot to the European Western regions, right? Whereas now we've closed that gap massively, and to some extent we're also excelling. And I mean, the main thing for me, I think that I've seen changing is the focus on people has grown tremendously, right? So whether it's focus on the mental well-being, the health, their career development, growth, it's been significant. And like you said, right, it's not just no longer the MNCs that are focusing on it. You've got smaller homegrown businesses that have a learning and development lead, for example, that have specialized trainings that provide mental health and well-being. I mean, just even from a ministerial perspective, the inclusion now of an alternate savings scheme, right, is such a big change, because that's the first time in the GCC where expatriates get benefit of a program like DUES that exists in the IFC. Now I know nationals, obviously they have their own pension schemes, right, but it's a fantastic thing to see now having this ability for expatriate employees, because I mean the statistics speak for themselves, right? About 90% of expatriates that come to the UAE end up either leaving in debt or with very little to show for the time. So the fact that companies now are moving away from that HR is just a back office mindset and is more of a strategic driver for business growth, I think it's been very visible.
Do you think it's the organizations, because you obviously commented on the fact that we're essentially all expats here, and we come from countries that have certain employment regulations in place or employment practices in place, and I guess that would partly influence the movement that we're seeing now. But I know that there's also been huge regulatory shifts and changes in that time as well, right? So would you say that what's impacting the shift more? Is it regulation and people having to kind of abide by certain tick boxes and must-dos, or is it people just expecting more from the workplace, wanting to grow, develop? And then from an employee or an employer perspective, should I say, is it the initial attraction of employees, or is it retention?
I mean, that
was a very broad, open-ended question. Yeah,
I think there's multiple facets to this, right? So there's obviously the ministerial side, which I think is driven by the expatriate workforce coming in, right? They want the country to feel like somewhere that people can call home, and especially for us coming from the West and from the European regions, we're used to a certain standard of employment regulations and protections and worker rights, etc. That it is now becoming more and more clear that you need to have these in place. But I think there's also now the whole demand that Gen Z and millennials are now becoming the dominant workforce compared to your Gen X and your baby boomers. And with them comes different requirements from workforces, right? So Gen Z, their top 3 priorities tend to be future savings, flexibility, and growth. So having those workforces come in to your organizations, having to meet those demands. So I think it's a bit of both. It's equally ministerial regulations that are driving all positive changes. But I think it's also the demographic that's coming in to the workforce.
Yeah, and I think it's the war for talent. I mean, I think like right now, obviously it's more of an employer's market more than it has been since COVID. But generally speaking, it's been, since COVID, what we've seen is that there really has been a war for talent. And it's about attracting that Gen Z and the younger workforce, but it's also about retaining them. And I think then the second thing as well is being competitive even as an organization, right? So when you start to really think about how to compete in the market as a business, again, it comes back to like the people strategy. How productive are our people? How engaged are they? Are we getting the best out of them? Do they have the skills and the capabilities for what we need them to deliver for the business, for us to achieve our business outcomes? So I think that there's been a very pragmatic shift in HR based on even like Dubai and the UAE and this region. It can be quite a competitive place for businesses.
Yeah.
It's not easy running a business in this region, especially a smaller or medium-sized business. So how are you competing in the market? And a lot of the times you've got to look inward, and you have to look at your people strategy, and you have to see about, you've got to look at productivity, efficiency, engagement, retention, and all of those things, because at the end of the day, people leaving, it's costing you money. People not being productive, sat in their seats but not being productive is costing you money. So I think it's even about that business, the edge, the economic edge as well. Yeah.
And I think it's interesting that you commented there on like the different demographics that we have here, because it's not just age categories, it's not nationalities. There's local workforce requirements as well. Yes, there's catering to different generations. What have both of your experiences been with that from you in like working internally, working with all these different kinds of things, really, like all these different things you have to take into consideration, and what their expectations are and how those differ and what you need to, so what's some of your experiences, starting with Expo and kind of
with regards specifically to the different demographics within the workplace?
Different demographics in the workplace. Faraz mentioned there, which is kind of why I raised this point about, what Gen Z are coming into the workplace demanding, and how does that compare to, your workforce that are of a different generation, and what they're looking for in terms of compensation. Is it purely salary? Is it all these other benefits? Is it learning and development? So just some of your experience with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what Faraz was mentioning as well is that people are here for a longer period of time. So their expectations of what a job in Dubai or in the UAE means has changed. Mm-hmm. A lot of people used to come with the expectation of
I'll be here for a year.
I'll be here for a couple of years. I will save a whole bunch of money.
Stash
and I'll
the
go
cash.
back. Yeah. But a lot of people, look at how many people have moved to Dubai since January. I think the number was over 300,000.
Yeah, well, but a large part of our business is also visa processing. So we're very familiar with the
shift. Insights into that.
The residency shift, is massive.
So, so people are no longer coming here just for a couple of years. If they're here for a long period of time, their expectations of the work life that they want is very different. Yeah. They want a career. Yeah. They don't just want a job. They don't just want a job to make a big paycheck and save money and go back home. They actually want to develop themselves. They want to build their career here now in this region. So I think that's one really big piece. And then the other thing is that you're right. Canada is a very multicultural place. So I'm from Toronto. I lived there for 18 years. And I'm a very proud Canadian, and used to pride our Canadian cities in terms of the level of multiculturalism. But when I joined Expo, my mind was blown. What real multiculturalism?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, what real multiculturalism?
Scratch the surface.
Absolutely, because what happens in a lot of Western nations is that people move there and they immigrate and they assimilate to the Western way of doing things. The UAE is a true melting pot because when people move here, their ways of working don't necessarily change. So
that's actually really interesting.
Right? And for a while, I kind of had this multicultural whiplash. I'm like, what's going on? I'm from Canada. I should be able to handle all of these different cultures that I'm working with. But what I realized is that they are not adapting to a standard way of working because that doesn't exist in the UAE, right? Within an organization, obviously with Expo, I think we had 91 nationalities or something by the end of it. So it's you've got all of, because I have from Indian descent, I can say, there's the people that come from India that have the Indian way of working, maybe ones that come from Canada and the United States that have that way of working. And now suddenly they're all having to work together in an organization. It's complex. Yeah. It is truly complex. Yeah. And I think that the best thing that you can do, because there is no one size fits all for all of the different generations that are there, for all of the different nationalities are there, is that you need to upskill your line managers and your middle management on how to handle these problems and these issues.
That's a great point.
Because a problem that comes there as well is you can't make everyone happy, right? And I think that's, I'm sure you'd be aware of that because of how big Expo was and just the massive differences in personalities, work ethics, everything, right?
But you get that whether you have 2 employees or 2,000, right?
So I think it's figuring out how do you propose systems, processes in place that protect everyone's best interests, right? And align everyone with the core fundamental idea that this is ultimately for the business, it's for the betterment of the business. So whether that's bringing specific policies in place, bringing in processes in place, having mentor programs, buddy programs, but I think very importantly as well is upskilling middle management and line managers, because really I think a business that works efficiently is a business where your line managers and your middle managers are your first point of contact or your first line of defense, so to say, right? They are the ones that should be able to diffuse situations. They're the ones that should be able to have cohesive teams and assign cohesive teams.
Are you saying kind of move a little bit of their pressure away from reporting everything to HR or going to HR? It should be training line managers to kind of deal with their employees directly before anything gets escalated.
Yeah, I think so.
Because I mean, if you think about your own jobs that you've had in your life, like chances are that the majority of the impact on your job has been because of the person that you're reporting to. And it's the team that you're working with, right? So you're not really interacting that much with HR. And that's not to say that HR shouldn't step in with the best practices and with what the policies are, etc. But it is your immediate team and your line manager that makes or breaks your experience at that organization. And if managers know how to create that cohesive microculture within their team, figure out what each individual values, and like, oh, this person is just coming out of university, so what they need is very different from this person who's in their 50s and is thinking about retiring in the next 15 years. So everyone's got different motivations, different values, and you can't keep everyone happy, but it's about building emotionally intelligent managers that understand the nuances of how to manage people, that everyone is different and their approach towards each person needs to be different. And that's where you truly unlock the success of the people, is by having really good managers.
Just by having great managers, Given we're talking about kind of systems and policies and trainings and stuff to put in place, as a region, there's quite a lot of stuff that needs to be considered as well, right? From like your regulation point of view, we've got WPS, we've got some of the pension schemes that you mentioned. What are some of the challenges that you face internally or clients face, or maybe they have expectations of what the process might look like and it's not that at all? Maybe we can talk a little bit more about the kind of challenges in terms of regulation and kind of the legal things that are required in this region.
I think from my perspective, one of the bigger issues is nationalisation. And it's there's a lot of companies here that ignore nationalisation and just chalk it down to that's a corporate tax for us to pay the penalties, right? When nationalisation is a fantastic opportunity because you're bringing in talent that is bound to the UAE, that is enriched with this culture and these people, and it needs to stop being looked at as a simple compliance checkpoint that we've hired an Emirati, we're fine for a year now. When the next Emiratisation requirement comes up, we'll look at it again. I've seen a lot of fantastic businesses go down that route, unfortunately, and it doesn't work out because the Emirati employee ends up leaving after a few months. They feel a bit undervalued. There's no progression. There's no growth.
Dissatisfaction.
Exactly,
all that kind of stuff.
So instead, that mindset needs to be a bit different. You need to look at it as an opportunity to bring these people in, grow them into fantastic roles, give them a career path that they can aspire towards, because we're not talking about what the UAE looked like 30, 40 years ago, where it was your C-suites are only your expatriate employees, right? Now, there are fantastic businesses in this country that are led by Emiratis, men and women, right? I mean, Emirati women empowerment has now become almost a national holiday in a way. So I think nationalisation is definitely one of the biggest things as a stumbling roadblock, because now it applies to anyone that's over 20 employees.
Yeah.
It's no longer just capped at the 50 plus employees.
Yeah.
So
how do you get people to change their mentality from that? Because it is part of policy. So it is a requirement that you're going to have to meet. But how do you change it into make this part of your workforce planning, build an environment that local employees want to come and work at, and it forms part of your entire workforce, like the same way that you would kind of cater to or, have loads of different nationalities. This is just one other nationality that you have to kind of consider. So how do you recommend that people start kind of building these essentially requirements, but into an opportunity to kind of grow there? And like you said, they're from this country. They're unlikely to want to leave. You might be looking at a long-term employee if you put the right effort and attention and kind of build this role and person up in the organization. So maybe some advice on how to kind of get that right.
I think it's a shift in culture that firstly needs to come in. It's a shift in mentality as well that needs to be taught, because there are a lot of perceptions that people have about employees of the UAE, and it's a very outdated perspective, right? So having exposure to what the Emirati workforce can be like, having exposure to how fantastic they can be. I mean, most of them now that are coming into the workforce are all US qualified, UK qualified, Canada qualified, right? They've done their degrees in these Western and European regions. They speak fantastically. There's no language barriers necessarily in place anymore. So bringing all those out into the front and in front of everyone that is going to be having this requirement for Emiratisation, that's going to be, I think, step one in terms of changing mentality, building a culture that accommodates these nationalities. But I think also one of the things that Emiratis find, and I think it was about 63% of Emiratis going into the workforce actually would rather be in the private sector over the public sector because there's more growth. But a large majority of them just don't feel either the appreciation or that they're valued equally as they would be in the public sector. And that needs a significant change.
I have many friends that are Emirati, thanks to my role at Expos, because we had a lot of Emirati colleagues. And we had a very, I can't remember what our target was, but I think it was 30 or 35% Emiratisation, which was unheard of at the time in 2015 for a semi-government entity. And even up until recently, just a couple of months ago, I have a friend that worked for a large tech business that everyone would have heard of in this region. One of the biggest ones that homegrown brands that we have. And she was with them and I was like, how was that experience for you? And, she's like, I just never really felt like they took me seriously. And so I think there is this, exactly what Faraz is saying, like if it becomes a check the box exercise for an organization, then they don't really take into account of, once we've hired this person, what are they going to do? How are they going to grow in this role? What is the career path for them? And I think PwC's latest nationalisation survey, which was done in 2024, found that I think 75% of Emiratis, the biggest thing for them is talent development and career planning and career paths. So they need to know what their future looks like at that organization in order to really feel invested and to feel engaged, which makes sense. If they're just being hired as a check the box exercise, they know it. They feel it.
I was going to say.
Right? They know their
attitude is going to reflect the same attitude you're giving them.
Exactly. So she felt like she never really felt like she was treated like the other employees. She didn't really feel like she was part of the team. So I think if you're a larger organization, so with Expo, we had an apprenticeship program where we hired new graduates. It was a 12-month-long program. It was really well defined in terms of different learning modules. They were embedded into various departments. They got to try out different roles. They had project work that they had to do. They had to do presentations. They had a internal mentor that they were, attached to as well for those 12 months. So I think structured programs like that show that you care and show the investment in this talent. We had over 90% of the individuals that went through our apprenticeship program in the first 2 years found a full-time role within the organization at the end of that 12-month program. When I was with AXA, I supported a similar new graduate program, same sort of thing, where there's either job rotation, they get to try out different roles, but they're also being trained on how to become young working professionals within an organization, a multinational organization. So giving them the tools that they need in terms of technical skills, soft skills. So really investing in that talent as well. So it needs to not just be lip service, you need to invest in that. And even if you're a smaller organization, don't think of it as something that you have to do for compliance. Think of it as part of your, as you said, your overall, talent strategy. Your overall strategy in terms of how are you, think of it as a talent pipeline, is that by 2025 or 2028, this is how many Emiratis we're going to have. So let's come up with a plan of the types of roles that are best suited and how they can grow in these roles. So be strategic about it, have a plan in place instead of being reactive and trying to avoid a fine and just bringing people on board and then not really having a plan for what they're going to do afterward. Because they also want to contribute.
Which is generally what happens towards the end of the year.
Yes, exactly.
It's we're in prime
poor planning.
Prime panic season at the moment. I'm sure recruitment agencies are completely swamped with
at the moment
requests, but this is also the other thing, right? When stuff like this happens, when panic hires happen for meeting amortization, your talent pool is going to become very saturated.
Yes.
Right. And it's more likely that you'll end up going for a candidate that doesn't meet that vision of yours versus a super candidate. Because these candidates, I would say at any given time, probably have 6 to 7 different offers at the same time. So don't panic, rush into things, plan. And Emiratisation needs to be part of workforce planning. It 100% needs to be. There's no questions about it.
So working with a lot of clients on like an outsourcing, I know that Kimi, you've also had a bit of background in outsourcing. Talent planning and workforce is one element, but you have been part of organizations that are just starting and organizations that have, are mature and have a bit of a history. What are some of the things how do you go in there and basically assess what needs to change or how they can improve their current systems and, kind of benchmark where they are, where they need to be?
I think it works differently for all different clients, right? It's not a one shoe fits all solution. For new businesses, for example, that are setting up here, they don't really have a HR presence on the ground. They don't understand the laws. It's a little bit easier to guide them, right? Because
start with the basic stuff rather.
You start with the basics, you help them build a foundation. Longer businesses that have been here for a long time, for them, it's more about understanding what are your pain points, what are the business processes you currently have in place? Are they outdated? Are they up to date with regulations? I mean, I can tell you the number of clients that we have that still have unlimited contracts in place when the regulations changed 2.5, 3 years ago. So it's a lot of those things, and I'm personally starting to see a shift now in terms of our clients now are really pushing for that employer of choice kind of recognition, and as part of that, it's bringing to them the understanding of you don't just have to limit yourself as a business to providing employees the statutory limit. There are enhanced benefits that you can bring in, whether it's extended leave, enhanced maternity pay, wellness programs, EAPs, etc. So it's a bit of guidance on what is best practice. It's a bit of what can you do to improve. And then it's just more about understanding what is your current processes, what is your current SOPs, what are your pain points, what do you do, what do you not do, what would you like to achieve.
Kimi?
I think whether it's internally working within an organization or working as a consultant, I think it always starts with what does the business need from its people, right? So starting with that end in mind, what is your goal? What does the business look like 5 years from now? Where do you want to take it?
Yeah.
And then working backwards from that point forward to figure out what do we need to do and what do we need to change on the people side to enable that.
Yeah.
So I think, again, as you said, like, with smaller organizations, it is just about getting the basics right and putting that scaffolding in place.
Yeah.
Because a lot of smaller organizations, for example, with Hello Chef, and with some of the smaller organizations that I've worked with, those basics and the fundamentals are not always in place, and HR is just doing payroll.
Yeah.
So it is about putting in like a performance management framework, and are we even tracking and doing ratings for people's performance? Do they know what good looks like?
Yeah.
And how to get there? Do they have career paths in place? Do they know how to get to the next level? What they need to achieve to get to the next level? So giving people clarity on that. Talent development. So, it's the basic things that are not always in place.
Yeah.
And then I think as you get a lot larger, HR becomes even more strategic in terms of, if you're looking at efficiencies of large businesses, that's when organizational design comes in.
Yeah.
It's, are the structures of these teams as efficient as they can be? Is there an opportunity for us to bring two teams together, or to make changes and restructure to make things a lot easier for the people on the ground, and to make things a lot more efficient for the business as well. So for me, it's always about starting with that end in mind, about where does the business need to go, and then let HR partner with you to help enable your business goals.
Yeah. And I think it's an interesting point, because when we say, a business starting out, that could also be a business that is somewhere else in the world, is really mature.
Business. Yeah.
Because, I know that you've definitely had experiences with this, Faraz, is that all the intricacies of HR here doesn't mean that your HR manager in London or wherever they're based can still run your HR function in this region, because of all the things that we've kind of touched on already. Yeah. Would you agree?
I agree, 100%. I mean, it's as a region, there are a lot of nuances to the kind of employment and labour spectrum here that you wouldn't necessarily have in the UK, or there's a lot in the UK that you would normally do as standard practice that you wouldn't normally do here. But I think it's more about bridging that gap, right?
Yeah.
And aligning, especially for clients that have a big presence outside the region that are moving here, it's a lot about aligning those practices, those processes that they currently have with what local requirements and what statutory limits would say, right?
Yeah.
I mean, prime example is annual leave.
Yeah.
Right? The PTO in the US and the UK and in Canada is abysmal compared to what it is here. And the amount of clients we've had that have said, do I really need to be offering 30 calendar days to my employees?
Yes.
To which the answer is yes.
Yeah.
It's a statutory requirement. But it's a lot of those small nuances, and those, it might not seem like a big thing from the offset, but when they build momentum and all of them come at you at once, it's very stressful for businesses. So it makes a lot of sense to have either someone on the ground here that is fairly knowledgeable, or, as we said, right, think about fractional ownership of that function.
Yeah. I'd like to actually touch on that a little bit more, kind of the working patterns and how they've changed over the course of even 5 years, I'd say. Because, we're typically used to, when you thought about the region, the 2-year contracts. We were kind of joking before about people saying that they were coming for 2 years and then going home. That's not the case anymore. But how have we seen that impact the kinds of roles that are available in terms of flexible hours, people wanting, part-time, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think that we have a long way to go in this region when it comes to that still. When you compare it to Canada and the UK and Europe, there's a lot more options in terms of flexible working or part-time work or job sharing or fractional roles than we have here. Sure, there's a lot of consultants here that are selling consultancy services that might account for part-time work technically. But I still feel like the businesses in this region tend to be very traditionally focused. When they're doing their workforce planning, they're always thinking about a full-time FTE. So no one's really thinking about, oh, hey, we need a graphic designer, but can we just bring somebody in that's going to work with us 10 hours a week? But we have that stability of working with the same person, for the next year, instead of hiring somebody on Fiverr to do gig work for us, but then we can't always rely on that individual. So I think that there is an opportunity to like change that mindset.
Is there a demand for it from an employee perspective?
Oh God, 100%.
Okay.
100%. I mean, I think, so I never took a career break after I had kids. So I've got a 3.5-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I've always been working full time, but something changed for me. Like after I went back to work after my first maternity leave, where I was just like, this is really hard. Like, I wish I could stop working at either 3 or 4, or just to have a little bit more time for myself to manage, my health and to be around more for my kids. And I think that every time, and I'm part of a couple of professional networking groups for women, and every event that I go to, if there's a couple of women there, it comes up in conversation about, hey, like I really want to go back to work, but I don't want to go back from a 9 to 5 or a 9 to 6 type of job. And again, post-COVID, we had a lot of remote working, and now we're seeing it go the other way, where a lot of organizations are demanding 5 days back in the office. So a lot of that hybrid working and the flexible working is going away, and they're clawing it back. So it's like what's going on? We thought we had this flexibility. So I think that as a working parent, I definitely know that demand is there. And there's this like massive brain drain that's happening in the region, where mostly women, unfortunately, sometimes even men, that are making that choice of staying at home with the kids afterwards. Or there's people that are taking care of elderly parents, and they need a little bit more flexibility. So it's not always parents. And it just like those opportunities just don't exist. So I think that there's such a void there in the market. But it's just, I think it's an uphill battle to educate employers about this. I see small businesses taking up on this a lot easier. So I've got lots of friends that own small businesses that like between 50 to 100 employees, and they are a lot more open-minded to having a fractional CMO or a fractional CFO, because they can't afford somebody full-time, and they would rather have somebody that's really highly qualified working with them 1 or 2 days a week, instead of having somebody sat in the office that's a bit more junior that can't really lead the strategy. So I think small businesses are a bit more primed for this type of way of working, but I think large businesses still have a long way to go, because workforce planning, it's always full-time employees. I don't know what you think about
I agree. I mean, I think COVID definitely accelerated as a region, our approach towards alternate work patterns, right? So much so that we now have gratuity calculations for part-time contract workers. We have leave calculations in law for these types of roles. But I agree. I mean, the fact that you see Amazon are asking everyone to return to work.
Google.
Oracle is asking everyone to work. Like it's a weird paradigm shift. But I think you're very right in saying that it's the smaller / mid-sized businesses that understand the value of flexibility. I mean, I'm in the UK. I'm part of a group called Parenting Out Loud, which advocates a lot for parents and caretakers, etc., and how their work is conducted. And I think it's very important here as well. I mean, schooling here is very expensive as one, right? And childcare as well is fairly expensive. So it's a lot of pressure on working parents, because now you're seeing a lot more families where it's both parents that work rather than conserves adversely just the dad, for example. So finding that balance as a business to offer flexibility to your workforce is very important. And it also kind of plays a little bit into a bit of absenteeism, a bit of presenteeism, right? When you have parents, I mean, I know for a fact that if my daughter's off ill and I've got no one to look after her, and I've last minute found someone that can look after her, my mind's not going to be on work for that day. Right? Realistically, I'm going to be thinking constantly, is she okay? is whoever I brought in, the stranger looking after her,
Yeah.
are they doing okay with her? Can I trust them, etc.? So a lot of that comes into play. So as a business, think about offering dependent based leave, right? Think about offering caretaker leave. Think about offering flexibility. If you have a dedicated work from home day, can that be moved as and when, right? On a case by case basis.
Yeah, there's different levels of flexibility, right?
Yeah, exactly. Plus, the other thing as well is you can't be so rigid on start time and end times. People have school runs to do.
Yeah.
And if you're someone that's done school runs here, they're an absolute nightmare, right? Because you can be sat in traffic around school areas for about a good 30-40 minutes.
I don't have kids yet, and it's a nightmare for me. So
exactly.
You're like, I also hate it. I also hate it.
But you take away that pressure if you have flexi time, right? So let's say, for example, a company says, right, anyone can start work from the hours of 7 to 10, right? Come in whenever you want, and then you just leave proportionally to that time. So it gives, especially parents, right? It gives them that a little bit of comfort. I'm not stuck in traffic. I'm not stressing that I'm late to work. I'm going to get punished by the line manager. I'm going to get telling off by the HR. It takes away a lot of that stress. And I think companies that have that flexibility are definitely, in my opinion, going to be the ones that are the highest performing. Because when you have a workforce that's engaged, that feels like their time is valuable, that feels like their life outside of work is also looked after, you've got to have, those are the people that are going to be giving you the 110% that you need. And I think that's so important.
Because they feel like you're being generous, you know?
Exactly.
So you will be a little bit flexible here, so you'll be a little bit flexible there. And then actually you can argue, because I think it comes down to, especially potentially for organizations that maybe can't compete so much on salary, this is an area that really they can bring in different benefits that makes it like, because I know for me personally, I value my time more than I would money. So if a company is going to offer me more time with my family, more time with, you know, the people that I care about, because I can start a little bit earlier, finish a little bit earlier because of flexibility, then I am going to consider staying longer over a bigger financial offer.
Absolutely. And I think, like, again, in this region, we tend to treat employees like children instead of as adults. And I think it's such a big problem because at the end of the day, when you treat people as equals and adults, then you empower them to take care of their business outside of work. And the more you trust them and the more empowered that they feel, then the more they feel like, yes, this is the place that, because it is rare, you know, am I going to take a bigger offer, or am I going to stay where I'm being valued and I'm being treated like an adult and I'm being empowered and I can make my own decisions, I have flexible hours, etc. At Engage, for example, which is one of the region's like most awarded internal comms agencies and employee experience agencies, when I was there with them, they have flexible hours in the sense that you can do the school run and then you can go home and work from home. At the time, I wasn't doing that. Like, I wasn't a parent. So I didn't really take advantage of that because my husband also works from home. So he always picked up my daughter from school in the afternoons. But we did have a lot of working moms that would leave at, 2:00. And it's guaranteed that they've been there for years and years and years because what other employer is offering them that type of flexibility?
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that exists for us. I mean, internally, right? So I have the flexibility of starting after I've done the school runs. Me plus a lot of our colleagues at Sovereign, we have the flexibility of leaving early to do the school pickups, and then we just pick up the rest of the hours from the house, right? So so
that's not just a benefit for parents. They've actually, like, it's company wide, and like going back to what you appreciate, that's something that I definitely appreciate.
Absolutely.
It means if I start at 7 on a Friday, I can get away and go camping for the weekend a little bit earlier. You get so much more of your own time back, and then therefore you feel, like we've said, appreciated, valued, that you're not a child clocking in, clocking out.
Exactly. Which I think also works the other way, right? I mean, there have been a number of times where if I have a client that is, for example, in the US or in Canada, and I have to work or have to have a meeting, let's say at 6:00 or 7:00, I've got absolutely no problems because I know my work is very flexible with me and gives me a lot of allowances. So if I need to cover a client that's in a completely different time zone, and I need to take away about half an hour of my evenings, I'm completely okay with that. I'm happy to do it, right? So it's that empowerment, I think, is so important, that you have ownership of your role, you have flexibility in your role, and that, I think, is what's going to set a lot of companies apart, right? Because otherwise you're going to have people that don't have that flexibility and being asked to take those 7 o'clock calls. They're going to be coming back to the manager saying, are you going to file my overtime? Am I going to get paid for this? Right? And it becomes a very transactional relationship.
Exactly, rather than a trust-based thing as well. So I think that is very interesting, that we definitely are seeing that shift. I'd like to talk about, I mean, you've worked with teams that are small and gigantic, like we were talking about the 2 versus 2000. When you're kind of scaling teams, how do you retain for employees that sense of like belonging, being part of a team? I'd be interested to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
I think that's one of the biggest challenges that organizations face when they start scaling. So, whether it was Expo was obviously a good example of just growing so fast every month. But even at Hello Chef, for example, the organization's grown quite rapidly over the last couple of years. Same with AXA, we were acquiring businesses in different parts of the region. And so through acquisition, the organization was growing. And I think the biggest thing in terms of creating that sense of belonging and clarity is belonging really comes from people feeling a sense of connection to the people that they work with. So are you as an organization creating those moments and creating space for those moments where people do have time to have connection with those around them? I think it's like Gallup through the Gallup survey that they do every year, people that have a sense of belonging have a 50% higher retention. And individuals that have a best friend at work are 8 times more engaged in their jobs. And even when I think back to my own career, like places where I had close friendships and relationships is where I really had that sense of belonging.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's where I felt like I wanted to stay, and I would have to think twice about taking another offer because I would be letting go of this community and this tribe that I had. So I think that tribe aspect is important, is like, are you creating those moments where people can connect with one another? And secondly is about communication. So that clarity comes from communication. The internal communication strategy needs to be very clear on what is, again, treating people like adults. So at Expo, our whole comm strategy internally was that we have to make sure that people know what's going on in the organization before there's a press release. Because
nothing like being blindsided by something happening internally.
And that used to actually happen. We had a comms function that was not managed by HR, and when it became internal and came under HR, and was one of the things that I was managing as well for them, was one of the biggest things that we heard in the employee engagement survey was people saying that I find out about Expo from the newspaper. And that's not okay. It makes you feel kind of little and disconnected, and you're like, oh, they don't trust to tell us this before they share it with the public, or there's a news story about it. And to be fair, there was a lot of stories coming out. There was a lot happening, right? So there's a lot partnerships deals being signed. We're reaching specific real estate milestones in terms of building the site. So there is a lot of news, but it really became the purpose of the internal comms function to make sure that they heard the news from us first before it was ever shared internally, so that they felt a sense of pride when they heard it in the news to say, I already knew about that. And then secondly was, how the decisions that the business is taking, what we're doing as a business. This is for all businesses, not just, at Expo, I've always said that we need to connect it to our why, right? So why does it matter? For Expo, the mission was creating an exceptional Expo. So we always wanted to connect it back to that mission of we're doing this because it's going to help us in this. We're doing this because it helps us with one of our 3, sub themes. And with all of the other businesses where I've managed internal comms, it's always about the messaging needs to align with the company's values, with the mission, and you need to make that connection every time. So that people feel like, okay, we're headed in a certain direction, and there's a reason for being headed in that direction. It's not just random decisions that are being made by the management. There's a purpose for it, and there's a reason for it. So I think that connection and that sense of clarity comes from
or adds to the feeling of belonging.
Belonging, exactly.
Funny you say that about belonging, because I saw a recent study by Mercer as part of their employee survey that they did just this year, and that found 53% of employees felt loneliness in the workplace, right? And I can guarantee you about 90% of those people are the ones that will leave in an instant for a better offer, right? Sometimes not even a better offer. Sometimes financially, it could even be a less offer. But if they know that this company is transparent, has a great culture, and creates that familial bond, right? And I think that's so important, especially when you're scaling, that everyone still has that ownership that they want, but B also feels that they are directly responsible for that scale and growth. That's honestly, for me, I think that's one of the strongest motivators out there.
What are some examples what would you recommend that organizations could implement to help along that sense of belonging?
I think even if you're a small team, get the leadership team to do a town hall once a month. Talk about the decisions that are being taken, or we're going to be offering this training, or we're changing this in the operations, and this is why we're doing it. Connecting people's work to the bigger picture is always helpful, because it gives people a sense of purpose. So I think you don't have to spend a lot of money. You don't need to do fancy newsletters and stuff, but just even having a all hands meeting once a month and talking about where the company's headed, decisions that have happened, having even like difficult and uncomfortable conversations. So if you've had a restructuring, like have a town hall about it. Sit in a circle and talk about how people are feeling about it. So I think it's creating that sense of trust and transparency comes through consistent action. It's not through the words people listen to your words, but they see your actions more than they listen to your words, right? So they're watching you always.
Public reward and recognition also is a very big factor here, right? I mean, one thing that we used to do at Hayes, for example, is on a weekly basis, we had a spin the wheel, right? So they would announce the top five recruiters. They would spin the wheel. Different levels get different rewards, but having that public acknowledgement from your leadership, from SLTs, that you are doing well and you are being recognized for your efforts and for your works and for your contributions, that also has a very, very big part to play. And that could, again, be very simple, right? It could be a weekly newsletter or a weekly report that says, right, these are our best employees, these are the most highest contributing employees, right? And just having that, like, I know me personally, right? Like, so we have obviously internally at Sovereign, we've got our weekly sales report. I, as a personal aspiration for myself, I want to be on that report on a weekly basis, right? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But that's besides the point, right? So that creates that internal drive and strive, which I think a lot of people miss, right? And this goes back to our very early conversations of all of these things tie into what a HR's responsibility to an organization is, right? And this is why it's very important to stop looking at HR as your back office administrative department and look at them more as a driver for growth and productivity. Because if you find the right HR, if you allow the right people in HR to bring in the right processes and steps and transformations in place, you can propel your business to new heights that you would never be able to do, no matter how much money you flooded in.
How do you stop? Because I mean, there's different levels of HR, right? And how you measure performance, and it's all for I assume the greater good of the employees and the organization. But how do you find a balance between it forming part of a process and something that you have to do versus and still making it feel like it's for the benefit of the employee as well, rather than just super clinical? Because in some situations you have deadlines or something as to how often you should be checking in. Have you checked in with this employee? You know what I mean? Like, there is a little bit of a kind of disjointedness between or maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe if you can talk from your own experiences, but like, oh, that employee check-in is coming up again and we've just done one. And, you know, what is the right balance between following the system and actually having it feel like a meaningful experience to benefit the employee and the employer, from checking in and making sure that they're, you know, meeting expectations, but then also, you know, holding them to a higher standard as to, you know, we need to improve you in this area. And I guess that goes into the wider conversation of like learning and development, but I'm trying to understand the right balance between, you know, doing your HR check-ins and making it not feel like a super rigid process, should I say.
I think I would probably say to that is, don't limit yourself just to the check-ins. Like if you're a manager, if you are an SLT that have a team reporting to you, be a bit more conversational throughout the year and not just wait till your biannual quarterly review or your mid-year performance review. I think when you have regular checkpoints that aren't official checkpoints, so to say, if that makes sense, right? When it's more conversational, how are you doing in your job? Are you finding any difficulties? Anything I can help with? When you have those in place, it doesn't feel clinical. It doesn't feel like, oh, my manager only talks to me twice a year when we have our performance review and that's it. And that's the only interaction I have with my manager or with my HR. So I think that's probably, in my opinion, it's the best balance of make it a bit more conversational throughout the year. You still have your official checkpoints where you talk about accountability for meeting your targets and not meeting your targets, and you talk about different metrics, but having that conversation where it's a bit more informal, where it's a bit more, I'm here to support you. Is there anything you need from me? Is there anywhere I can help you grow? Anything you would want to talk to me about personally, not personally, from a workplace or whatever it may be? I think that's probably, in my opinion, that's the best balance the businesses should look for getting.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think that as you get higher up in an organization and the more people that you manage, majority of your time should be spent managing those people instead of actually sitting at your desk. So, you know, people that are at the C-suite, et cetera, you know, 80% of their job is actually communication and stakeholder management. You know, there's 20% is technical knowledge at that point. And really, like, best practice for a line manager is, are you checking in with people and having a one-on-one conversation with them at least once a month at a minimum for your direct reports? I mean, without going into details of like how many direct reports is too many and all of that kind of stuff. But I think that for a reasonable sized organization, even large organizations, regardless of the level that you're at, you should be meeting with your direct reports at least once a month. And that is the conversation in which you're just generally talking to them about life. How is it going? How can I help you? How can I be doing better? It's that human connection. That's when you're figuring out what makes them tick. What do they value? What's going to motivate them? Like that is where, you know, that's where the gold is in those conversations. So yeah, I mean, I think that nothing should be a surprise by the time their performance review comes along. Like, it shouldn't be like, oh my God, I didn't realize I didn't meet my targets. It's like everything should be known entity, and the performance review that happens once a year or twice a year, or even if you do it quarterly, it should just be a formality. Like at that point, everything should still be known. So nothing should be coming as a surprise in those formal check-in points, because you've been in conversation and you're talking to these individuals all the time. And then I think the other thing is, like, we can't expect people to always know how to manage people. And this is where it comes back to what I was saying earlier. You have to coach people on how to become good managers. You have to teach them coaching skills so that they know how to have these conversations more effectively, how to give feedback, how to receive feedback. So I think it's really essential to, you know, really strengthen that middle management layer so that they know how to have these conversations with tact and carefully and to build these relationships as well.
Yeah, so I actually think that you answered the next point I was going to come on to, because I kind of positioned that in a way that was, how do you kind of make it work from an employee perspective, that it doesn't just feel like a checkbox. But I guess there is some real benefit or necessity really to have it from the organizational point of view, right? These scheduled tick box meetings and
100%. I mean, I think any organization whether you're 2 employees or 2,000, you need to have checkpoints in place, because what you don't want to be doing is, like you said, right, having people sat at the desk but not working, or not meeting targets. And there is, every organization will have different levels of tolerance, I think. I mean, it might not be the best word to use, but it's the only one that's coming to my mind at the moment. But different tolerance levels, right? But the point that Kimi said is, you don't want to have a chat with an employee in January and then come July, August, they are completely blindsided by the fact that they've not been performing, right? You don't want your check-ins to be a surprise. So if you have those regular check-ins, that tolerance level never gets tested, because that employee always knows, right, okay, this is maybe what I'm not doing right. I need to shift my priorities a little bit, or I need to shift the way I work a little bit. I need to focus maybe a little bit more on better client communication. But my delivery works excellent, for example, right? So having those regular check-ins makes sure that businesses don't hit, or employees don't test that tolerance level.
Yeah, you don't get to a breaking point, I suppose.
And just to add on to that, I think the other thing is that all of the good managers that I've had that have ended up becoming more like mentors in my life are people that gave me excellent feedback in the moment. You know, they were emotionally intelligent leaders, and in the moment, if I didn't do well in a meeting, they would pull me aside after the meeting, and in a kind way, in a direct way, tell me what I could do better next time. And I think as human beings, we're very scared about having these types of conversations, and it can be scary. But I think, again, this is where you know, organizations need to create a culture of feedback where you need to give people feedback when it happens, not a month from then. Right? So it's about the regular check-ins, but it's also about, you are their coach. Like, you know, if this is a high performing team, you are their coach. And if you see something that should have happened better, or if you see good behavior, or if you see something that they did incredibly well, tell them. Because then they will repeat that recognition again and again, you know, then they will want to do that, more of that. And really the ratio should be 4-1. And this is based more on like marriage counseling from the Gottman Institute, right? Where like good marriages have the ratio to, you know, good interactions versus poor ones is 4-1. And I think we can apply the same in the workplace, is that if your manager is only telling you what you've done wrong, that's not going to be a positive relationship, and that's not going to be somewhere where you want to stay. So managers also need to get into the habit of calling out really good work that they're seeing, and patting people on the back and saying well done, and, you know, giving substantive positive feedback as well as constructive feedback.
So I guess actually in that sense, these regular check-ins, whether they're kind of scheduled for you or not, is a good opportunity to do all those things, right? So it might come very naturally to you as a manager to do these things, but if not, then, you know, hopefully your organization has this in place where it's kind of, you know, the time now is to remind your employees what they're doing well, what they're not doing well. And I guess it kind of caters then to every level of manager and how they communicate with their team.
And then sometimes they need checklists and toolkits. We've done that many times as consultants and internally as well. Is like, here's a toolkit, or here's a checklist for your one-on-one. Here's a checklist for when you do a probation review. Here's a checklist for when you do a quarterly review. It's fine.
And I guess that forms part of the policies and stuff that you help put in place as well.
And the kind of whole learning and development side, right? I mean, training and upskilling managers on how to be better managers. That's definitely a very important thing. And just the ILM training courses that exist for managers, businesses. I think managers, like I said, right, are your first line of defense, and it's important that they have that emotional security, that they know how to manage employees. That it's not micromanagement. You've done something wrong, you get an absolute telling off in front of everyone, for example, right? It's building the next generation of success of successors, and building that next generation of leaders for the organization, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not a case of your reports are going to take over your role at some point, right? But you might move to a better role, but you'll feel more comfortable if someone's at the helm that you've personally mentored and you've taught, and they pass that down. And I think that's very important of what top management does trickles down.
Yeah.
So if top management has a very kind of toxic micromanagement, scare tactics approach, that's going to trickle down to your mid managers and your line managers, right? Whereas vice versa, if top management takes the approach of very open, clear, transparent conversations, friendly nature, more mentorship, and more supportive, that's also going to then trickle down. And I think that gets missed a lot of times, where with businesses.
I think it's interesting that you say that, because I think when you think of the line of progression that you get when you're an employee, if you're doing good work, you typically get promoted, and then you're in charge of people. But just because you're a good employee doesn't mean you're a good manager.
Exactly.
And I think there's a like misalignment with that. So I think a lot of the stuff that we've been saying today has come back around to learning and development and the kinds of things that need to come into play there in terms of upskilling. How do systems form part of this? Because we're talking about all these things you have to manage when it comes to your workforce, but are we managing these on Excel spreadsheets? Like, how are you managing everything?
Excel is still a step forward. I've got clients that are recording leaves on paper,
pen
and paper. Right, it's 2025.
But there is fully functioning systems, right, in place, because it sounds like there's so many things that you need to be tracking.
Yeah.
From an employee protection point of view, but also from an employee protection point of view, right? Because not always your employees are going to be ones that you do want to keep on. So you need to, when we're talking about kind of check-ins and tracking, all that kind of, if it's logged in a system, theoretically would help for disciplinary and all that kind of stuff as well, right? So are we seeing internally and from an external point of view, HR systems and functions, being a top priority?
I think yes. I mean, you no longer have your big juggernauts of your Oracles and your NetSuites, right, limiting you to HRMS systems. You have smaller ones that are a bit more catered to smaller size businesses, right? I mean, I used to implement Oracle solutions for HR, so I know just the ludicrous fees that companies used to pay to have those systems, but now you can get systems as little as $100 a month,
right? Okay.
For up to 20 employees, and these are all cloud-based systems that are tracking leave, tracking payroll, tracking performance management.
So does that always come part of your recommendations, that a system is necessary?
I think a system is not just there for streamlining; it's there for reports, right? You can generate reports of how many of your workforce have reached a 4 out of 5 metric on the performance review. Who's doing well, who's not doing so well, and having all that data is definitely important, right? So we've talked about workforce planning, we've talked about career development, all of these things, but a lot of that needs that substance that builds that drive towards workforce planning and succession planning, etc.
Is previous data.
Is previous data, is your legacy data, right? So I think there's a very big importance that HR systems plays in a workforce's output.
Has data been as important in your roles?
I think that data has become one of the key things. That data literacy is huge for HR professionals. If you don't know how to read data, interpret it, get insights from it, be able to present it to the C-suite, I don't think you can be an effective HR leader. And HR data, there's power in that, as you said. If you don't have this basic foundational data, then you're not able to make the harder decisions. So I think data-enabled decision-making, data-enabled insights and dashboards have become extremely important for HR teams. And that's why a lot of HR organizations, like in the larger organizations, even have HR transformation roles. They've got whole data analytics teams. And, at Expo, we did use SAP SuccessFactors, so one of the big juggernauts, and I've done a lot of SAP SuccessFactors implementations and stuff in my previous life. But I think, as you said, these systems there's a lot of different systems that are available, like Bezos, Zoho, like there's a bunch of them that are not expensive, easy to use. And then it also comes back to the fact that data is powerful. And if you want to have a seat at the table, you need to be leading with data as an HR leader and not with, your gut instincts and just qualitative data. You've got to combine the qualitative data from focus groups, employee engagement surveys, along with the hard data that you see from your HRIS, and then be able to lead decisions.
Yeah.
And secondly, you have to free up your time and your team's time in managing all of this stuff manually. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I think it also goes back to employee experience, right? On the other side of it.
Exactly.
So it's not just organizations, it also significantly impacts employee experience. So I'm no longer having to chase 3 people just to request for a leave, right? So self-service is a very big factor of these HR systems. So I can apply for leave myself.
Yeah.
I can look at.
You can download a salary certificate.
Exactly.
You don't have to request it and wait 3 days.
It really streamlines that employee experience.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to the whole overarching kind of topic that we have of what makes an organization efficient in managing the people, and streamlining a lot of these processes and improving that employee experience is definitely a big factor.
Yeah, and putting some of the responsibility on them, right? Like you said, we can kind of apply for leave through the system directly now, which kind of streamlines everything. And I feel like we can't really have a conversation about HR in 2025 without talking about AI.
Of course.
We'd be a bit naive if we did.
We made it almost to the end of the session, but what is the biggest impact that you guys are experiencing? Are you feeling in the HR space it empowering the HR systems, the HR, what you're able to do as HR professionals yourselves? Do you feel at all threatened by AI in kind of what it might be able to do? What is the right balance, right? I mean, I guess that's probably what it's going to come to, because we've had a lot of conversations about AI, myself and Faraz offline. But I'm just interested to hear your experience with HR and AI.
It's funny. This is actually something I talked about with my CIPD level 7 group.
Yeah.
So we kind of did like a SWOT analysis of where do we put AI in the HR space.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of people that put it in threats, but I, amongst a few other people, put it in opportunities.
Yeah.
I definitely see, as much as AI, in my opinion, is a technological revolution, I also think it's an organizational revolution, right? I mean, the speed at which AI is generating and growing is phenomenal. 3 months ago, the kind of trendy word was generative AI, and now it's moved on to agentic AI, right? And agentic workforces. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in the HR space of bringing AI into companies, using AI to streamline processes, using AI to cover different tasks, different responsibilities. There is a level of threat, right? Because with AI will eventually inevitably come some redundancies, right? But I think as HR, it's our job to identify what roles can AI replace.
Yeah.
Given its current capacity and current capability, what can it do, what can it not do?
Yeah.
But it's also, I think, equally our job to bring that requirement for businesses to upskill their workers to learn AI, right?
Work alongside
Exactly. So, I mean, as part of that event with Mercer that I just went to recently, it talked about what in the next 10 years are going to be the biggest skills for employees that don't need to feel threatened, and AI literacy, prompting abilities, etc. Those are some of the top skills that they recognize as being the ones that if you have employees that have these skills, right, and have AI skills in place internally, personally, those are going to be the employees that are going to succeed the best, right? Versus those that just don't bother, act as dinosaurs, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. There's 2 parts to it. One is as an HR department or as a people and culture department, what are you doing in order to look at your HR operations and to find inefficiencies, to delete processes that no longer make sense, to obviously automate things through AI. And we've done a lot of that at Hello Chef. saving us almost 60 hours a month.
Wow.
And that's not nothing. That's significant amount of somebody's full-time job. And now they can be doing more high impact work instead of doing more administrative stuff. So I think AI gives us an opportunity, again, to be more of a strategic partner by automating things that are no longer really serving us, that can be automated, that can, things that you when you look at it in your operations, what can you make more efficient?
Yeah.
I think secondly, because HR is the one that needs to be, we need to be in partnership with the leadership to future-proof the organization and the company.
Yeah.
So at Hello Chef, we ran a full year series called Future Ready series, where we upskilled the blue collar and the white collar team in AI literacy and in AI tools, and then doing specialized sessions for each department. Because, customer service team isn't going to use the same types of AI bots as the marketing team is going to use.
Yeah.
So you really need to be very targeted in the learning and development that you're doing. So the L&D needs to be very personalized. As always, learning journeys need to be personalized regardless. But I think when it comes to AI as well, absolutely you need to carpet bomb people with like the basics so that they come up to a certain level of AI literacy and we're all talking the same language. But then after that, it is the responsibility of the HR team to make sure that, again, based on where the business needs to be headed, what are the skills that these people are going to need?
Yeah.
What are the jobs that are going to become slowly redundant? I'm a software engineer. I never thought in my lifetime that cursor is going to replace what I learned for 4 years at university.
Yeah.
I never thought that a machine is going to be able to code as well as a human. Like when I graduated, we used to get signing bonuses.
Yeah.
It is such a sought after profession to be a software engineer. And now, like when I look at my 3.5-year-old, I'm like, I don't know what you're going to do when you graduate. Or is there even going to be universities?
Yeah.
And what are you going to be learning in them? But I think we're in such uncharted territory that I think, HR really needs to be in the leading edge with the leadership, like in tandem, looking at what are the roles that are most threatened by that, upskilling people, future-proofing them and their careers as well, so that they are not feeling left behind.
Yeah.
Because I think as organizations, again, it is, I feel from an empathetic perspective that there is a duty of care.
Yeah.
So the learning and development and talent development now needs to also heavily look at future-proofing people.
Yeah.
So that they are being upskilled in ways that they will be able to adapt to this new world that we're moving into. Job security, exactly.
And there's so much market data out there, right, in surveys that talks about skills that are diminishing, skills that they see are becoming more trendy, and skills that are becoming more desirable skills, right? But I agree. I think HR, along with IT, in my opinion, has a very big part to play in a company reaching that AI maturity.
Yeah.
Rather than it just being an IT transformation, for example, whether it's from workforce planning, whether it's L&D, upskilling, training and development, understanding what positions realistically AI can replace, what might become redundant. But then again, going back to that whole having that clear communication, right?
Yeah.
As an organization, if reaching AI maturity is a big focus of yours, or a big drive, or a big motivator as an organization, make that transparent to your workforce, right? Make that clear.
Yeah.
Ask them how they feel about it, right? Because at least for me, I wholeheartedly think that any company that's currently not using AI to some extent is going to get left behind.
Yeah.
And again, to quote statistics, there was a study that said 71% of UE employees have said they use AI, but only 30% of those 70% said that their company provides any form of training or development or guidance on how to use AI, right?
Yeah.
So I think, in my opinion, it's maybe more HR that has a more important part to play in bringing AI maturity into organizations than IT. But if not, at least a 50-50 partnership.
Yeah.
And businesses need to recognize that early on, because whoever gets there first It's that whole thing of the early bird gets the worm, right? So it's very much that.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that's going to happen is that as the world gets more and more like digitized, as we already are,
Yeah.
I think there's also another opportunity there for HR, because obviously, yes, we need to be in the leading edge for this transformation that organizations need to go through. However, we also need to keep in mind that now more than ever, people are going to look to HR to do the things that machines cannot do.
Yeah.
Empathy, context,
Yeah.
clarity, trust building, leading change. Like these are things that a machine can't do yet.
Yeah.
And
They help to lead efficiencies,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I like that you went down the path of kind of what we're predicting the impact to be kind of going forward. But my question actually originally was more along the lines of what are kind of organizations using it for right now when it comes to HR? Is it recruitment? Is it hiring? Is it writing letters?
Consultancies.
Yeah, you know. So do actually comment on that. What are you actually seeing organizations use AI for their HR function?
I don't know if you caught this, but OpenAI posted an image on Twitter saying that Baker McKenzie is the first company worldwide that uses ChatGPT to reach 100 billion tokens, which kind of made me laugh.
Wow.
Because Baker McKenzie are probably one of the biggest management consultancies globally, right? So what do they need that much ChatGPT usage for?
Yeah.
But but I think, look, you can use it from so many different factors, right? I mean, I can go into ChatGPT and just type in a simple prompt of give me a template for probation reviews, right? And it'll generate
write me a policy for X,
write
Y,
me a
and Z.
policy for X, Y, Z, exactly. So there's a lot of usage for AI, but there's a lot of privacy risks as well. And I'm not going to get started on the ethical use of AI because that's a whole other animal in itself. But there's so much. What a lot of people miss is you can have your own account with Google for Google Gemini and ChatGPT, etc. But these are all still public forums, right?
Yeah.
They're public domains, and the amount of people that put sensitive company data onto ChatGPT is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I mean, I can probably type into ChatGPT now, sales report of PwC in Canada 2023, and it will give me what people have actually put into these forums.
Yeah.
So there's a lot there to kind of.
And I think like that, I went to a AI and HR event with Bezat, and they had a labor lawyer there, and it was really, really interesting to hear her talk about all of that, right? Because really, if your company needs to have an AI usage policy,
Yep.
you need to be very clear. And this is, these are again things that we have put in place because we were doing the Future Ready series. So we knew that people are going to be using ChatGPT. We're going to be giving them corporate accounts to use it, et cetera, et cetera. There's going to be other AI tools that each department's going to use. And you have to provide the guidelines in terms of how these tools should be used as an organization, in terms of what kind of documents can be uploaded, cannot be uploaded. And for, there's settings that can enable ChatGPT to search the documents that you've uploaded or disable them. So this is, again, as part of that AI literacy is this, because you need to be able to protect your company data. A lot of organizations don't care. They're like, nothing that we have is there's no like trade secrets here and stuff like that. So we don't care.
Yeah.
But just regardless of that, the leadership needs to have a think on that. And along with HR, you need to put a policy in place.
Yeah. How do you grow these kinds of, having worked on kind of upskilling plans and onboarding plans and the shifts that we've seen, and we talked about, and even now just like the shift in AI and how drastic that is. At what stage do you kind of introduce different levels of, so for example, AI, should that now become part of people's onboarding plans? You know what I mean? Like it's this.
I wouldn't say necessarily onboarding plans, but I think find the right use case, I guess would be my point, right? I mean, it's okay to use AI to do research, but we're still at a stage where AI is confidently wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right? I mean, you can ask ChatGPT something and it will 100% bet its life on the answer, and then 2 seconds later you ask it again, it gives you a completely different answer, and then it says, I'm 100% confident it's right. So find the right use cases for AI.
Yeah.
I think a big factor as well is monitor people's output.
Yeah.
Right? Especially client work. Because a lot of people will deliver work to clients or assignments even, right, in universities and schools, and claim it to be theirs, but you're not cross-checking information. You're not verifying that information. So I think currently AI is supplemental. Right? I don't think currently AI is at a stage where, at least in corporate, within corporates, it can take over entire roles or entire projects or entire delivery side. So right now I would probably keep it as policies, guidelines, ethical use, what can you do, what can't you do. I don't, at least personally, I don't think it makes sense to have AI within the onboarding space or when people join in, because it becomes a bit overwhelming, right? I mean, when you start a new job, it's a bit scary as it is. And then you just slam them down with, don't do this with ChatGPT, don't do this with ChatGPT.
Yeah, I just meant kind of more on like the things that are changing, the new things that we're seeing introduced as we kind of like progress, you know, at what point do you take them seriously? But I think based on what you said there, it's about assessing and reassessing at different stages as to how important or prudent it is that people are kind of brought up to speed on it. From an outsourcing perspective, do you see more companies investing in upskilling?
Yes.
You do?
I do. And again, this goes back to the shift regionally of being more focused on their employees, being more focused on reaching that kind of employer choice recognition, upskilling or continuous professional development, as we HR nerds like to call it, right, is critical. And I think no business can succeed unless their employees progress with whatever's happening in the world, right? So if you have a business, if you had 2 similar businesses and one really focuses on upskilling and AI, etc., whereas one gives absolutely no attention towards it, in not even 5 years time, I reckon in 3 years time or 2 years time, company A is going to be far ahead of the curve compared to company B. And I think now people are recognizing the importance of upskilling and recognizing the importance of LMS systems and having learning and development teams in place to educate, to grow, to develop their staff, not just internally, but I'm seeing a lot of companies now even providing their employees as part of benefits, covering their costs for doing different degrees, for doing different certifications, for signing them up to LinkedIn Learning even. Right? So I think it's definitely becoming a very big factor for businesses now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where there's a lot of training companies in Dubai, and there's a lot of them. Yeah. Because I think that there is like, I can't remember what I have here, but yes. So I think like by a lot of estimates, like 40% of the skills that we have now will be obsolete by 2030. So that's another 5 years. So I think it's not just about keeping your business afloat, really, right? So it's a business imperative to be upskilling your staff. Yeah. Because if you're not doing that, then again, it comes back to that competitive edge. Yeah. Will you have that edge in 5 years as a business or not? And organizations that tend to have, structured learning pathways for individuals tend to have are 200% more productive. More than 90% of people, when they're asked on the Gallup survey, they say that learning is one of the key things that keeps them in a role. Yeah. So if a company is investing in their learning, they're likely to stay longer. Yeah. And that's what I've seen with all of the roles as well, is that, for example, at Expo, we had an event readiness strategy. So it was all about all of these individuals have a pre-event role, like you're a procurement manager or you're in HR ops. But then when it comes to event time, you're going to have a role on the site. So, we did like a skills, like a skills assessment. What was the gap? What are the skills that they need to learn over the next 3 to 4 years? And how do we get there? So that was our learning pathway, was based on what we needed to deliver in terms of the expo and their event time roles. But I think within each organization, again, it sort of comes back to aligning the HR strategy to the business strategy. Where does the business need to go? And then strategically looking at all of your different teams and the different roles that you have. What do they need to be accomplishing 3 years from now, 5 years from now? And working backwards from that in terms of coming up with what are the skills that they need to, fulfill that promise. To fulfill that for the business. So I think it's hugely important, the L&D. We talked about, upskilling your line managers. I think that's key. Especially in this region, I find that a lot of people that are managing people don't really know how to manage people. And I think generally speaking, just again, aligning with the business strategy to deliver on what the learning strategy needs to be.
And how have you managed like different types of employees, right? Because I mean, when I think about, I'm thinking about the corporate world that we're in, and majority of the roles are office based, but like you've worked in an environment, like you said before, where it's project based, or someone's skill, what they do pre-projects, during project and post-project might shift. Or you have people that work in the office environment, but then I don't know if Hello Chef had drivers or people that were out of office. Like how does exactly, how does managing different kinds of working environments kind of play into a factor of HR?
I think that HR needs to be very good at listening. And that's one of the key things in any of the roles that I've had. It's always about, HR can be quite industry agnostic, but I think as HR, it's your job when you come into an organization is to understand that organization, understand the people, and take time to listen. So in any role that I've ever had, especially if it's a new industry, and if it's a new demographic that I haven't dealt with before, whether it's white collar or blue collar, it's about having, smaller conversations with like people between 5 to 10 people in a room, and having like listening sessions where I'm asking them questions about their experience as an employee, and asking them, sort of going through the employee journey, like all the way from recruitment, all the way to offboarding. What is the experience of people that have worked at this organization? What are the pain points? What do we do well? What can we be doing better? And I think that you build from that. That's the first place to start, is to understand the people that you're serving. Because as HR, yes, you're there to serve the business, but your other clientele is the employees. So it's very important to align with the leadership in terms of where they see the business headed, and what are the key pain points that they and the main challenges that they want you to solve. But also listening to the employees is so important to understand their context. What are their lives like, and what are they struggling with in their work life? What can the business do to make that a little bit easier? So it's very important to understand the context of the industry that you're in and the people that you're serving.
I
don't think I could say it that any better. I mean, look, human in the HR, right? People in the people operations, apart from your SLTs and your board, they are your biggest stakeholders. So making sure that you're balancing operational needs and people needs efficiently, that's going to be your biggest way to make sure everything works well.
And I'm just curious, because obviously, again, with you being more on the outsourcing side of things, when clients are coming to you, what is a typical pain point? Is it more about the function setup here, or is it, I'm unfamiliar with what's required for me when I onboard a new team member? I don't know how to handle this termination, because do I need proof? I don't know, what kinds of things do you kind of experience in the outsourcing perspective, where your clients are a little bit like need your help, really?
I know we're kind of short on time, but to answer quickly, it's a variety, right? I mean, one of probably the biggest pain point is I I have an employee who's not performing, I want to terminate him.
Okay.
And the first question is, have you had a chat with them? Have you given feedback? Have you placed them on a performance improvement plan? And 90% of the times the answer is no.
Yeah.
Right. And it's having that knowledge of have these steps in place that we talked about, right? And have check-in points and have clear communication. I think for me that would probably be the number one.
But for us, sorry to jump in here, do you also agree that the labor law also needs to catch up to 100%, the best practices, right?
100%.
Because as of I think in 2022, when the labor law changed, there's no such thing as arbitrary dismissal anymore. So even the businesses that are coming to you that are like, hey, I want to terminate an employee. Well, technically the answer is
you can't.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
you
you
can.
can.
Oh, okay.
There's no such thing as arbitrary. So I think that there are certain things in the labor law where, as an organization, and especially if you work for a good organization, there should be checks and balances in terms of performance improvement plans, first written warning, second written warning, et cetera, et cetera. But I think you will be very surprised at, again, because there's just so many small and medium-sized businesses in the region that don't really have headquarters somewhere else. They play very fast and loose because labor law also allows them to do that.
But I guess that runs reputational risks, like we were talking about. When you look at a company and you look at culture, or you look at, how long is your average employee staying? Yeah. If a company is quick to get rid of you, then you might also second guess. Okay, so just to close off, do we have any predictions as to what we might see in HR in the next couple of years? I mean, I guess we're along the conversation of AI, so I guess that would be a large part. And actually just now reflecting on the kind of key points throughout the whole conversation, a lot of learning development seems to be a core topic that we're discussing. Yeah, I'd love to hear your closing thoughts. I
think AI, learning and development, these are probably going to be the biggest driving factors in the next few years, at least regionally. But you never know, right? At the pace that AI is transforming, it could be anything. We're currently now looking at companies replacing their entire customer services teams with agentic workforces. What that is in the next 6 months,
who knows?
Yeah. But I think the important factor here is stay up to date with changes. Don't get left behind. And part of that is the learning and development side of keep training people, keep upskilling your managers, your workforce, keep introducing new ideas. Because when ideas die, that's when businesses die. As cringy as that is.
That was a nice way to summarize.
No, completely agree. I mean, obviously, I think you have to keep up with AI. You have to be, if you're in part of an HR team, you've got to be constantly thinking like an AI engineer to be like, what are the things that are inefficient that we can remove, that we can get rid of, that can be automated, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Because that is what the future is now for HR, and what a great opportunity for HR departments to stop doing stuff that is just a waste of time and to actually become more strategic now with AI. So I think in the future, we're going to see a lot more adoption of like AI chatbots that are helping people understand policies instead of it being them coming to a human being to ask these questions. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that happening in terms of this in the self-service type of area of HR is AI technology. And then I think on the other side of it is also, there's going to be more and more of a focus now on talent development. Because of AI, right? So it's going to be about how are my people upskilling? How am I going to make sure that they are not going to be obsolete? And if these roles are going to be obsolete, then what skills do these individuals need to learn? What else could they be doing? So I think the AI and the talent development strategy is going to go hand in hand.
Okay, Kimi, Faraz, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.